everyone. It's showtime. Good morning, good afternoon, good evening, everyone, from wherever you're joining. We are so glad you're able to join us today. And today we'll be discussing thriving in the workplace, essential skills for soft skills for every professional. And we have with us today wonderful panelists. We have Dr. Chidera, we have John Foster, and we'll have Dr. Ben join us shortly. Before we proceed, I'd like to tell us a little bit about the Bridge. We are hosting the event, the Bridge Scholarship. We provide scholarship to intelligent and indigent students. We have this tall dream of expanding to the whole of Africa by the year 2032, and we're working tirelessly every day to make that happen. So this is one of our efforts to empower everyone to live out their potentials. Equip everyone with all that they need to be their very best selves. So thank you once more for joining us. My name is Somto Chukwumajobi, and I have the honor of guiding today's conversation. I'd like to give our panelists probably 1 or 2 minutes to introduce themselves further. Don Foster, would you like to start up?
Yes, thank you, Somto. And I'd like to start off by saying I really admire what you're doing through Bridges Scholarship. It's something that is needed and is making a difference. So well done. So I'm Dawn Fossa, former CTO of Curve Health. I currently offer fractional CTO services to startups. I have over 18 years worth of experience in healthcare technology and executive leadership. I've worked with a lot of startups and enterprise companies developing innovative products that have transformed healthcare delivery in the emergency room, in laboratories, and even in the patient admission process. I've also had the opportunity to develop a patented healthcare system. So I've been in the healthcare technology space. I love that space because I've been able to be part of creating a solution that's had direct human impact. I'm excited to be here. I'm also an educator, so I work to create coding boot camps for high school students. So it's a passion of mine to be able to make a difference in the upcoming generation. And so it's a pleasure to be able to share some insights on this platform.
Oh, thank you so much, Don. Thank you for being here. We really appreciate it. Thank you so much. Dr. Chidera, would you like to introduce yourself, please?
Yeah, my name is Chidera. When I heard about the Bridge Initiative, it's one thing that kind of hits home for me because going through schooling and up to the point of my graduate school, I have been a recipient of one form of scholarship or the other. Back home in Nigeria, there were the TDF scholarships and all those forms of scholarship back home. Then getting done with my program, I was able to get the Education USA program scholarship, which funded my my trip down here for grad school. And again, getting to grad school again is also a funded program as well. So in one way or the other, I've been like a beneficiary of that idea of someone coming up with their money to say, hey, you can go to school for this. But getting done with that, I right now work in the fintech industry, and it's one thing that kind of I feel very passionate about because first of all, I grew idea of technology, and having to use technology in the space of our economy is something that has always been insightful, and the technology that is behind all those driving factors has been kind of very, very instrumental to driving development in our society. And it's one of those things that I kind of like towards the end of my program. And when the transition happened, it was awesome. But overall, I'm here to share my insight about our topic today on soft skills, and I'll be happy to share whatever I know. Sure. Thank you so much.
Thank you so much. Thank you. We really appreciate you being here as well. I think Dr. Ben, he's yet to join in, but we can proceed. When he joins, we can have him introduce himself as well. I'd like to start with a quick icebreaker. If you were asked what you think the most important soft skill is, what do you think that is? What would it be for you, Don? And for Chidera as well. Let's hear you.
You know,
Um,
oh yeah,
Go ahead,
I guess.
Shidera.
Yeah, I guess probably as an engineer, I'll probably say critical thinking. I think I have that so much. But yeah,
Yeah. Yeah. And for you, Don, what would it be?
I'd say communication, communication, specifically empathy. That I would say is the top on my list.
That's interesting. I like the fact that you put a twist there. Not just communication, but communicating with empathy. That's really
Yes.
important. Yes. Oh, we have Dr. Ben with us. Welcome, Dr. Ben. Glad you were
Yeah,
able to join us.
yeah. Thank you so much for the introduction.
Yeah. Would you like to introduce yourself briefly for a minute or two?
Okay, all right. My name is Emenike Benjamin, and I'm a PhD. Currently got my PhD from Emory University, April 1st of 2024. And yeah, I've been involved in academic research for the past 5 years, and I'll be moving to Princeton, New Jersey for my postdoctoral training.
That's great.
Thank you.
Congratulations. Double congratulations. Graduating and then moving to New Jersey. And I'd
Thank
like to
you.
mention, I forgot to mention that Dr. Ben and Dr. Chidera have been, very supportive of this dream. They are both stakeholders. So we really appreciate them, all their support towards the Brit Scholarship and also making the time to be here with us. So thank you so much once again. Yes. Okay. So I asked a quick question, Dr. Ben. I think you didn't get that. I was asking, what do you think the most important soft skill is for
The
you?
most important soft skill.
Yeah.
Yeah, I think for me it's I would say two. There are two major ones. The first one is
Okay.
communication, and then the second one for me is the collaboration.
Oh, great.
I think for collaboration, I always believe that great things are not achieved in isolation. The bigger the problem, the more people you want to have. If you have a big dream, I believe that having supportive people can help you achieve those goals is an essential thing to have. So, and to make that happen, you as an individual also have to develop the ability to collaborate with people, make have attitudes that enables efficient collaboration. So that's one of the biggest soft skill that I think is highly important for me. Then for communication, I believe effective communication is very important, and especially when
Yeah.
working with teams. Is often good to communicate effectively. Everybody, like, when you pass a point across, like, there shouldn't be any doubt or maybe any difficulty in getting the point you're trying to pass across. Because if you don't have that effective communication, it tends to make the dream of collaborating even an issue. So those are the two major soft skills for me. I value a lot.
Oh, thank you for sharing that. That's really insightful. Communication. I also think communication is one of the key, soft skills one needs to have. If you don't know how to communicate, it defeats the purpose for whatever you're trying to do. So, effective communication is really important. Thank you. Effective communication, critical thinking, collaboration, all top notch. Thank you so much for sharing. So, I think we'll jump right. We'll start with the conversations. The first questions would be like to help our audience understand what soft skill is exactly. So I would start with Chidera. I don't know, what would you say are the top three soft skills every professional should prioritize and why? The
yeah.
top.
Well, I mean, if we talk about soft skills, those are kind of things that if you just put it in opposite to the idea of technical skills, just something on the opposite end of it. You just have to. These are skills that are transferable, and you just have to develop them kind of by harnessing them more inside you. And if we kind of break them down, just like we mentioned, things like communication, things like teamwork, things like organization. Um, Again, things like critical thinking and problem solving. So for me, if I want to break them down, I think they are all going to fall into kind of common categories, right? And depending on where you find yourself to some degree. If you find yourself in a situation where you would have to interface with human beings a lot. You just have to be able to communicate. If you find yourself in a space where you have to interface with non-humans a lot, you have to solve problems. You have to be critical in how you think, right? And by that, I'll probably want to break it down in a better picture. If you find yourself in the tech space, right? We all see these very interesting technologies that come up every time. But what happens actually is that they all break down from an idea, and someone breaks this idea down into some chunks of work that has to be done, and someone actually have to do the work. If you find yourself in a space where you have to come up with that idea, then of course you have to know how to solve problem and know the problem that you're trying to solve. Then by the time you're trying to break it down to a team, you have to communicate that problem to a team to tell them what's going to happen with that problem. At the point where you will solve it, you have to be able to, critically solve, like writing the code. You have to be able to point out what is wrong with this code at the point of solving. No matter how good one facet of your one facet of your soft skill is at some point, it won't serve maybe the other point so much, right? At the end of the day, for instance, if you have to write an actual code that will work, you must be able to solve problems. You must be able to be critical thinker. If you're able to communicate with the team, like you're the scrum master to tell the team, hey, this is how much our team is progressing. If you can't communicate the problem that they're trying to solve, and again, communicate with the business, that aspect of your soft skill would not be helpful at that point. So I think, soft skill in general are things that are not the basics of what you are doing, but they would help you achieve your goal. So that's how I'll put soft skill based on that.
Thank you. Thank you so much for sharing that. Don, would you like to weigh in on this?
Yeah, and I'll refer to what Dr. Chidera said. What's the problem we're trying to solve? So is your question the top soft skills or the value of soft skills?
Oh, the top soft skills.
Okay. Okay, I start with communication. And like Dr. Chidera shared, it does not matter what you have come up with or what solution you have. If you're not able to effectively communicate it, you will not have any buy in. So, especially in leadership, when you're leading a large group of people and different people have different ideas, you find that the main reason why ideas are maybe ignored is because it's not communicated in the way that gets adoption. For example, if you come up with a technical solution and your executive is focused on how do we gain more market share, how do we increase sales, in your communication, if your communication is focused on the technical benefits of that solution and you're not clearly articulating how is this helping with my goals as a leader, it's hard to get buy-in. And so communicating what you want buy-in for effectively and showing how that is connected to the overall goal is very important. And it takes stepping away from your shoes and stepping into the shoes of your audience and asking yourself what's important to them and how can I communicate what I have effectively. So if you're a scrum leader like Dr. Chidera is sharing and you're talking to a team of architects or security engineer or project manager or team lead, being able to weave in what their interests are in your communication makes you a lot more effective. So communication, I'd say, is number one. And then I also think understanding, being able to collaborate in the sense of understanding the team's personality. And I say that because in an engineering team, for example, you may have folks that are more interested in details, folks that are more high level. And so communicating with respect and understanding each person's preferences allows you to collaborate better. And then I say the third thing is your work ethic. And that sort of ties into dependability. So in any organization, life will happen. You know, you may drop the ball here or there. And the currency you have to build trust is how you behave before that incident occurs. So being able to be dependable, if you commit to doing something, following through. If something happens that affects your follow through, communicating that ahead of time so that the team is aware. So that work ethic, follow through, is also a soft skill that I highly value. I want a team that is dependable, that I don't have to babysit. And I know that if something is about to go wrong, I will know ahead of time so I can plan accordingly. So just to wrap up, I'd say communication, being able to collaborate with respect, and work ethic and follow through.
Thank you so much. That's really insightful. Communication. I think communication seems to be topping the charts today. Communication, effective communication, and then you mentioned collaboration with respect, and then work ethic. I think those are really, really, really insightful. Thank you so much, Benjamin. Dr. Benjamin, forgive me. Would you like to? I would like to hear your take on this, please.
Yeah, just to add to what everyone has mentioned, I would also like to highlight uh, conflict resolution. That's
Mm,
something that is often overlooked in the industry or academia, wherever we are working at. So oftentimes it's difficult to have people of diverse cultures and diverse training, and then you're trying to build a team that is meant to achieve a particular goal. But due to the differences in cultures and the mindset or upbringing and stuff, so you do have those differences that oftentimes can hinder progress in the workplace. So sometimes having the ability to take our differences away from the goal and resolve those problems, I feel are also essential skills to incorporate.
mm.
In addition to what you said.
Yeah, thank you. Conflict resolution, especially with with the wave of we now work online mostly. Things have really changed, and it's difficult communicating face to face as opposed to when you're communicating online. So really knowing how to resolve conflict, I think, is a very useful skill to have. So thank you so much for sharing that. So a follow-up question for everyone before we go into answering specific questions is there, do you remember a pivotal moment for you when you began to realize that you really need to incorporate soft skills? Soft skill was really important for your career success. Or have you always known that soft skill is a critical component for career success?
Happy to go first. So my background is a developer. I was a software engineer for 10 years, and I was good. I was heads down. I got my work done, but I saw that everyone around me, I felt like everyone around me was moving ahead. And it felt like the hardworking engineer was stuck because you're good at your work, you stay there. And everyone else that I felt were like smooshing and not getting their work done and talking around, they were the ones getting the manager position. They were the ones moving up. And it felt like something was wrong because in academia, you see that if you work hard, you get rewarded for working hard. In the workplace, it's not exactly so. And so I think for me, that's where I had that realization. It's more than just being good at your work as a developer. It's more than just getting the work done. In fact, if you're good at getting the work done, it's to your manager's benefit that you stay there getting the work done because have their work easy. But if you want to do more than just being an individual contributor, then you have to understand, how do I incorporate soft skills? Um, and so for me, that was the turning point of understanding, even though those other folks, I felt like we're not working as hard, they know something that I need to know. And so you get into learning, okay, what is missing? Am I bringing visibility to my work? Am I communicating? Am I building those relationships that's necessary for me to move up to the next level? The whole myth of just do the work and they'll know. In the workplace, that doesn't happen. You have to be able to communicate, showcase what you're doing, intentionally build the relationships with the people that are critical for your success. And that way, it's at the end of the day, it's a people business. Politics is everywhere. Being able learning that in a positive way if you want to grow. So I think for me that was a turning point to understanding that technical skills are not enough. They get the work done, but if you want to grow, you need soft skills.
Oh, thank you for sharing that. I have a follow-up question for you.
Yes.
I'm curious, how important is seeking feedback,
Mm.
actively seeking feedback? How important is that for one to develop soft skills?
Yes. I say it's important, but there's also tact involved because
Mm,
the thing is, if you come across as always seeking feedback and always double checking yourself and always asking what do people think, that could have a negative connotation. But
mm,
if you're strategic about it, so you identify these are the folks that I want their feedback. One is your leader, your manager, maybe a peer that you trust, getting that touch point with them. So you being proactive and saying, how did I do? That's good. And then if you have, and then general feedback, like say, for example, you're running a program, at the conclusion of the program, you send a general survey. How was the program? And you get feedback on the project that way. That is good. So that's one way to solicit feedback in a way that doesn't give the impression that you're not confident, that you're double guessing yourself. Just
mhm,
identify who you're going to seek feedback from and do it in a way that is maybe not all the time, maybe once every quarter during your review, you do it that way. Now, the unsolicited feedback is when someone comes up to you and say, hey, I noticed this. Here are my thoughts. I would say always assume they're right. And so receive that feedback with humility, saying, okay, this person has something to say to me. And then afterwards, then you do the reflection and say, is this really, does it resonate with me? Am I really, do I see any truth in it? And so on your own, you can then filter the feedback to identify what works, what wouldn't work. And if you need any further clarity, you can either go back to them or someone else, maybe a mentor or leader you trust. Because some feedback are not useful. Some feedback is based on the person's experience of what you should be. For example, I once had a feedback from my boss that said, well, you lack executive presence. And that didn't mean anything to me. Like, what is executive presence? And mind you, this is a male dominated environment, very cutthroat, competitive. And so in that space, to be a leader, you have to be loud, you have to be rude, you have to throw your weight around. There is that persona of who a leader is. Now, for me, that isn't natural. So if he comes to me and says you lack executive presence, I don't know what to use that feedback for. Like, I don't know, what does that mean? What do I need to change? So some feedback is not useful. And so I had to kind of digest that and ask, my coach and my mentor and come back to him. What does that mean? But it threw me off on a loop because it just wasn't useful. So some feedback I know exactly actionable. And so you can now identify, what do I need to change or what do I need to do? Anyway, I went on a long trail. In summary, for soliciting feedback, do it in a strategic way with people you trust. For unsolicited feedback, accept with humility, thank them, and then you go and digest it and identify what is actionable, what is truth. Also give yourself a pat on the back and identify what you want to change.
mm. That's really powerful. Thank you for sharing that. So what I hear you say is being strategic about feedbacks, and also being an active participant, not just a passive participant in your own development, but playing a pivotal role in your development. So thank you so much. I'd like to hear your thought, Dr. Ben.
Uh,
Do you remember the question? Or do you
I
need me
think
to?
Yes, maybe repeat the question.
Okay, so I was asking, do you remember a pivotal moment when you realized that, you really need to build on your soft skills? Like you had the technical skills, but maybe I need to work on my soft skills. Or have you always been, aware of the importance of soft skills for career success?
Yeah, I think that's something I kind of started paying attention to probably 6 years ago in my career. Because previously it was most of the focus was on getting the technical skills. Because most times that's what a lot of people focus on. But after a while, you start noticing that that alone is not able to drive success, maybe career success. Um, so I started paying attention to that 6 years ago, and some of the key areas, some of the key soft skills I kind of focused on, we are mostly uh, public speaking and presentation. Those are things that matters a lot. So if let's say you have all the technical skills, but you're not able to present your ideas, to the people that matter, and maybe you're not able to communicate effectively. So I feel those things tend to kind of stall or inhibit your growth in a workplace. So that's something I feel everyone should maybe make active steps, or maybe make deliberate efforts to work on, because eventually those are the things that kind of adds and maybe takes each and every one of us to the next level.
Thank you. Thank you for your insights. Dr. Chidera, would you like to weigh in or should we proceed to specific questions?
Yeah, probably will just kind of give an overall theme of what you will hear from me tonight with this question. Again, you're asking when I thought soft skill was pivotal in my career. So here's the thing. I'll kind of put it in a very simple way. For me, soft skill is is your personality, is your character. That's is simply what soft skill is. So essentially, right, I will put it this way: from the moment you are born, you're already building a soft skill because you are building a character. The moment you step into a school, you are building the technical skills. You're learning 1+1, you're learning 2+2, you're learning what is ABC. You are just all those things that are technical that you are trying to learn. Those are the technical skills. So who you are as a person is what we are talking about here, right? And in that regards, so my team of whatever I will probably give you as an answer. I mean, let me just give you straight up. Your character would have to be defined by where you find yourself at every single time. Just like Don said, right? You don't want to start a career and your concern is building executive presence. That's not your concern at that point.
Yeah.
You want to build work ethic. You must learn those technical things at that point. You must build perseverance. You must be able to build those characters, critical thinking. You must be able to solve problems. That takes you out in the park in your team, first of all, for you to be seen. You must know those ones. The moment you start becoming, like, for instance, you're in a tech team, you start becoming a tech lead, you must learn presentation. You must learn how to communicate. That's what you do at that point. The moment you become a tech lead for 2, 3 years, 4 years, you are thinking about, hey, I think I don't want to go the individual contributor route. I want to be the manager route. That's when you start thinking about, oh, what is my actual executive presence? What is my communication? But like I said, you must know where you are at every single time and ask yourself, what is the character that I am lacking at that point in my life to grow? If I'm stepping out of university right now and I'm asking myself, oh, what is my soft skill to be a communicator? You can communicate all you want, and you come for my interview and I ask you, write this code that will do this, and you're telling me you can communicate whatever you want to say. At the end of the day, I want to see how you solve a simple and
Yeah.
that's what I'm trying to see here. So again, my point is like all the soft skills are nice, but what is the character trait that is required for you at that point in your career? And that's what we're going to discuss.
Yeah, that's really insightful. So I think it's very important we know that it's not just building soft skills, but building your brand as well. So that's like the overarching purpose. You're building your brand. So that's really important. Thank you so much. So I think we'll now take a deep dive into some of these soft skills we've already mentioned here, like communication, adaptability, conflict resolution, and all that. The first question would go to you, Chidera. Um, Navigating change. You mentioned, for every phase, there is something that is required of you at that point. How can professionals adapt their soft skills? How can they make it relevant in a rapidly changing job environment? How can they make it relevant? At every point, there is something that's required of you. So, how can they adapt their soft skills to suit what is required of them?
One of the soft skills that we kind of underestimate a little bit more is, adaptability. In our world right now, we have to be very open to the fact that things will change. That is for sure. No matter what you are trying to do, even if things doesn't change, you would have to change to be able to go to that next level. So if you ask me personally, what I do is that um, I study a lot to some degree. I mean, people think it's a lot, but maybe I don't think I study as much as I want to, you know. But for the most part, you must have a time block in your day that you say, what am I doing right now? I can say, what character do I have to develop more? For me, I found out that it's very simple. I mean, once it's getting late at night, I'm very sleepy, so I tend to go to bed early, But I woke up quite early, So for that reason, it's easy for me to wake up, go for a run, and use 2 hour time block and do some studying. That's like what you just have to do for that next phase of your life. And just find the way it works for you. I mean, if you're the type that probably go to bed by 3 a.m., I mean, then maybe you find a time block that works for you. But overall, we should expect that change to happen. And for that reason, find the time block to be able to um, develop yourself for that change.
Thank you. So, what you're saying is it's important for one to take some time to reflect and know what's important at every phase.
Yeah.
Reflecting helps you equips you to know what to do at every point, because maybe what works for one person might not work for you. So really sitting down with yourself and knowing what works. Reflection, that's what I got from your
Mm.
insights at this point. Reflection is very important. So thank you. I'll go to you, Dr. Ben. Can you share an example of how adaptability helped you navigate a significant workplace challenge?
Okay. So I think adaptability, like what Dara said, is a critical soft skill that is essential. And as as humans, and even in the workplace, like we need to constantly be evolving. Times change and situations change. So being able to adapt is usually essential. I think the most critical one for me is when I made the move to do my graduate school in the US. So, I had to adapt to the new cultural settings, new culture, the way things were done here were slightly different. And sometimes, back home, since because the culture is different, some of the things we see as respect, was also slightly different here. So people preferred it to call them by their first name, and we all know, as from Nigeria and Africa, sometimes you cannot call somebody by the first name. You have to add, a professor, a doctor, or maybe sir. That was something. So it was something that was a little bit difficult to adapt to when I came here. So, in addition to that, also getting to work with a diverse team, because in graduate school, obviously, you tend to meet people of different culture and perspective about life. So, getting to work with these people and then also trying to hear their own opinions and making sure our differences doesn't hinder us from achieving our goal. So those were kind of critical moments where I had to apply the ability to adapt towards ensuring that I achieve my career success.
Thank you. I think from what you shared and what Dr. Chidora shared, it's important to know that this change would happen. It's part of life. So having that knowledge that change is something that is bound to happen helps prepare one for when that change actually happens. So thank you. I would go to communication with empathy. you mentioned that when you talked about the top three skills done. So I would like to ask a question. What are some best practices for communicating with empathy in digital interactions? Because like it or not, we're in the digital era. So what are
Yeah.
best practices for communicating with empathy?
Yeah, yeah. I would start by saying I think our basic human need is to be heard and understood. Even if we're not completely agreed with, you're not in agreement. I think Dr. Benjamin mentioned conflict resolution is key. I feel like a lot of conflict arises when the other person doesn't feel heard. Say I make a point and then maybe sometimes you say but this, and I still feel like you didn't hear what I said, you didn't validate what I said, and so I start arguing. You heard me, but you had your own point which you wanted to add to. So I feel like a lot of conflict stems out of that, not realizing that it's important that the other person know that you heard them. So communicating with empathy is acknowledging that person's point of view and then adding yours so that the communication moves on and everyone feels heard. Even if you don't agree, even if you say, yes, I hear what you're saying, I'd like to present a different point of view. That way, you're able to communicate in a respectful way and everyone feels heard. If you're a team lead and you're trying to, to Dr. Chidera's point, trying to lead a team to solve a problem and you want everyone to feel included, communication with empathy is hearing everyone out, maybe putting it on the board, even if you have your own idea of this is where we are going, but having everyone feel like they've heard. So that's communication with empathy. Or if someone seems heated about something, asking them, what's your passion? What is it that's driving here? And hearing them out. So I would say communication empathy is validating the other person you're interacting with, whether it is just acknowledging what they're saying, trying to understand what their passion is, and connecting with them first before you try and introduce something new or you try and disagree with them. That way there's that feeling of win-win. We're in it together, that we are working towards a common goal. And it really helps to reduce friction.
Oh, thank you so much for sharing that basic human need, being heard.
Yes.
We want to be heard. We want to be heard. So knowing that helps us. I think I have a follow-up question. How important is active listening when it comes to communicating with empathy?
I'd say it goes hand in hand. It goes hand in hand because it lets the other person know that you are paying attention, you're looking at them, you're not distracted. It's interesting because recently I was on a podcast. Let's talk about digital communication. So in physical communication, when you're hearing someone out, you're saying the hearing, I'm hearing you. In digital communication, that can be it can be the distraction though, because there's lag in the communication, and so when you play it back, it's like the person keeps getting interrupted. So active listening in digital communication might just be looking at the person and then repeating what they said before you say what you want to say, so that they hear it all. Being curious, asking more questions so that they know you're hearing them and you're interested in what they say. So I'd say active listening goes hand in hand with empathy because it lets the other person know in factual terms that you're hearing them and you're interested in what they have to say and you're curious about them, and so it just validates the other person and helps with communication.
Thank you. Thank you. They go hand in hand, and knowing that, knowing the nuances of communicating with empathy in the digital space and also when we are face to face. Thank you so much. I'd like us to answer a few questions before we continue with the question. We have questions from our audience here. One says, please, how well, I'll probably show you so you can all see it. How well does mentorship help in building soft skills? Does any of you want to shed more light on that?
Oh yeah, just like I'll kind of point you back to a little bit of something that Don said, right? When it comes to mentorship, there are different levels to this, right? I would kind of recommend you to have some kind of mentorship with someone that is just slightly above your level. And those are probably the people that you want to call a mentor. And then you can have someone that is slightly way above your level, which is called the sponsor. For most times, we kind of tend to choose someone that is just influential as a mentor, right? And in that case, we don't max out what we should be maxing out from mentorship process. If we get that whole idea of who a mentor is, someone who will just guide you through the ropes of what you are trying to solve at that point, is still fresh in their memory, and they're able to pull you through what you should be able to be focusing in yourself at the time, because they already know that, okay, at this point you've done so well in this, you must be able to know how to present it to this person. You must be able to know how to handle this kind of problem when they come up in your team. Those are when you are able to, again, like I said, build the right character skills that would help you navigate your current situation. And like I said, people end up like, you see a manager in your team, you're always like, smooshing up to them, hey, can you be my mentor? I mean, you walk into their office, they don't even connect with what you are trying to feel or solve in your life at the time. Their current life phase and character development that they are working on at that time doesn't align with yours. And you find yourself, you have this, even if they are generous with their time, they give you this 15, 13 minutes time, or that you walk in there and you just come out knowing fully well that you just wasted that time. You both wasted that time. But if it's a sponsor relationship that you are trying to develop, all they want to do as a sponsor is that they are seeing your face. Everybody is happy. Hey, good afternoon, sir. How is your work going? I'm doing this. It can help your team. That kind of relationship helps for sponsors, right? But when you want a mentor, keep it somewhere that is just slightly above, not too far that they can do it, because at that point you lose the whole goal of building your character, which is soft skill.
Thank you. I hope Chooks, you got that. That's really insightful. Sometimes we think our mentors should be those who are way ahead of us. But this is I like the perspective you just shared with us. Someone who is not too far up to, have difficulty relating with where you are at the moment. So thank you so much there. Another question would be from Shaggy Lola. He said, someone advised me before I finished school having a technical skills relate I'm just having a hard time understanding what is, but I think this person is talking about how to build soft skills even while they are still in school. Do you want to answer that, Dr. Ben? How can one build soft skill while in school?
I I think, like, just to kind of add to what Chidera already said, uh, soft skill is something that you don't like have a dedicated time when you're like, okay, this is the moment when I want to start building soft skills. So even in your daily activities, it could be your scholastic activities, while you're in school and all of that, while also trying to improve your technical skill, maybe as a student, you should also make deliberate effort to also work on the soft skill aspect of it. And most times, the curriculum often provides opportunities for you to work on some of those soft skills. Because, take for example, maybe, the most common soft skill most students work on is, from the communication aspect, is maybe writing. Oftentimes you are tested on your ability to communicate a concept. So that's something most students get to work on. And also, I think the curriculum also oftentimes provides you with opportunities to present in front of people. That's also another soft skill that a lot of people don't tend to work on that much. But that's the soft skill that is essential for, let's say, pushing you through school and also getting opportunities, future opportunities regarding maybe job or graduate school, wherever you want to go to. And those are like the major soft skills that I feel that people should also work on while they are getting their education. And obviously, the minor ones, maybe networking and having mentors. Chidera already kind of touched on that briefly. So I think those are also things that you actively should work on while getting your education.
Oh, thank you. I have a follow-up question. You mentioned networking. How can a student begin to network even while in, because sometimes we feel like networking is not important until we graduate and begin to look for jobs. How can one begin to network even whilst in school?
Yes, actually, I think networking is something that's really important. First of all, it starts with your colleagues or your classmates. Oftentimes, we tend to neglect, the people within our horizon. That's where it actually starts from. Because everybody has a destination and path in life. So I believe that networking with people, irrespective of their current situation, is very essential. Because tomorrow, these people that think might be just your classmates might actually be strategic places, where you can tend to maybe you might need them in the future to get you to your next destination. So the first avenue for networking starts with your colleague or your classmate, and also I think doing the mentor, like looking for mentors or maybe sponsors, that's also another area to network. You could make sure you are maybe in good talking terms, and you also have people that can significantly help you in your career path. Like people that are maybe in positions of I'm looking for the right word, like in positions that might be impactful to what you've been leading in the future. Like it could be your lecturer, it could be a professor in the department, your head of department. It's always good to build those networks first. When it's time for you to maybe get some maybe recommendation or something, you could always run to these mentors, people that are within your network.
Oh, great, great. Thank you for that. So it's important we build network with our colleagues as well as those we would aspire to be like. So not just limiting our networking with those we think have already arrived, but networking with even our colleagues is very essential. So thank you so much for that. So Don, I have a question for you. You mentioned about executive presence. And Dr. Chidera also alluded to that when he said there is time for building executive presence, knowing what is required at every point it's important. So I would like to know, how can there are people that I really want to be a leader. I don't see myself being at this position for a very long time. How can one balance building soft skills that would be relevant for when they become leaders, and also working on skills that are important for them where they are? How can they balance that?
Mm,
How can one even build leadership skills even whilst
yeah.
maintaining the relevant skills for where they are at the moment?
Yeah, that's a great question. I would say volunteering outside your workspace in leadership roles allows you to build those necessary skills whilst you're still developing technical skills in your workplace. And to your point of executive leadership or executive presence, a lot of confidence a leader exudes is knowing who they are and being comfortable in who they are. You have some leaders that, well, I would say the leadership landscape has sort of changed. It's changed from, if for those in the diaspora, from the white male dominated, charismatic, throw your weight around, to authentic leadership. um, and that involves you identifying your strengths, the way you lead. It involves you maybe taking some personality assessments, understand, okay, what do I bring to the table? How do I lead differently? Am I a visionary leader? Am I a servant leader? Am I a collaborative leader? How do I get, because leadership essentially is being able to communicate a vision and get buy-in and lead an organization of people to get whatever it is done. And so you can independently discover the type of leader you are, and in discover the space in which you lead well. And in that knowing, you're able to exude an executive presence because you're confident of yourself as a leader. You know how to lead well. you know how to take feedback, offer feedback, coach your team, and then you can practice that outside your workspace, in your community, in your church, in any sort of groups you're in. You can sort of exercise those muscles, whilst in the workplace you can be still an individual contributor, doing your work, growing your technical skills. So that's the approach I would say is one way you can grow your soft skills for the next level in a present role.
Thank you. That's really powerful. Identifying your strength and being confident, because oftentimes we have this idea that this is what leadership looks like, and if we don't seem to fit into what leadership looks like, we feel we're not capable and we're not confident in ourselves. So
Yes.
identifying your strength is really, really
Is
important.
very
Thank you so
important.
much.
And
Yeah.
also where you are, where do you want to lead? If you want to lead in investment banking and finance in New York, you have to be a certain type of leader because it's cutthroat, you work a lot of hours. If you want to lead in academia, it's different. If you want to lead in it. So I think also understand, where do I want to lead and what type of leader am I, it's really key. And if you start your own company, then you set the precedence of what kind of leadership you want in your space.
Yeah. Identifying your strength, knowing what kind of leader you want to be, where you want to lead gives you agency. Thank
Yes,
you. Thank you.
absolutely.
Yeah. Dr. Chidera, I would like to hear your take on this, please.
Yeah, I think Don kind of answered it a little bit more. So just to summarize what he said in a different way, again, for you to lead, you probably just have to go through the ropes and get to the point where you're a leader. One thing that people tend to do is like I've had the experience where someone comes in the team and is like, "Hey, I want a leadership position." I mean, everybody has been in this team, and you won't earn it at the end of the day. And I have seen a case where we're in a meeting and someone is like, "This person just orders us around," and he's like, "Oh, what did they say?" They said, "This is bad, fix it." And I was thinking to myself, right? Someone else in that same team will tell you this is bad, fix it, and you are happy to fix it. Why is it that the person is saying this is bad, fix it, and you don't feel like fixing it? I understand what I told myself at that moment is that the difference is that one person earned it, one person is trying to get it. You know, and if you find yourself where you are wanting to be a leader, and it's like you are struggling to get it, uh, you might want to back a little bit and say, what am I not doing right, or what haven't I done to be able to be it? You know, and if you genuinely want to build your leadership skill, right? Listen to this. The reason why when someone is reviewing a resume and I bring someone's resume, you're just getting out of school. I guess I'm talking to some people that are also getting out of school. And I'm looking at your resume and I'm seeing, hey, he is the headmaster of the debate club, or he's the president of the debate club, not headmaster. The president of the debate club, he's the leader of the sports team, he's the leader of this. What we are evaluating at that point is the soft skill. When I'm looking at, I have done this project, I've written a code that can do X, Y, Z. I'm evaluating your technical skill. So if you are still starting off, find those spaces that you have gained mastery and start learning leadership skill in that space. Don't come into a space where you are still a novice and you want to start dishing others around. No one hears you out of those spaces, right? But if we, for instance, I have someone in my team, they join junior developer, and all they are doing is that they just want to it doesn't work there. But if you walk into a football pitch and he can dribble everybody there, automatically I give him the captain armband, right? And that is when he starts learning those kind of leadership skills like empathy, like executive presence. Because in the football pitch, he knows when his teammate is not up to it, then he can communicate with empathy in the football pitch. Then in the workspace, when you become that tech lead, you can transfer those skills you've learned in your football pitch into your tech lead space. And that is what kind of gives you that step to be able to start picking up in the professional field. So when you send out resume and you think that all you need there is those technical skills, Kehinde, I agree with you. Before you get out of school, build that technical skill, have one that you are strong in, right? And then you can start building up on that with regards to what that technical space require, with regards to your leadership as well. So yeah, Don kind of answered it, and I just have to like show him more examples to verify that.
Mm. Thank you, Dr. Chidera. So I think what I got out of this is that they are transferable. So you don't have to wait to get to this point to begin to build. Even where you are, you're already building and developing soft skills. So that's really important. Thank you. I'd like us to get into emotional intelligence. This is EI and IQ, which is more important and all that. So let's look into that. How does emotional intelligence shape the way we interact with our colleagues, stakeholders, and in our workplace? How does one being emotionally intelligent? How does that affect the way we interact at work? Um, Doctor Ben.
Yeah.
Yes, let's
So
start
I,
with you.
yeah, I think emotional intelligence is something that is also essential in the workplace. You know, I think Don already mentioned that kind of understanding that people, want to be heard during a conversation or something that most often times everybody is very passionate about trying to communicate a point and maybe get a point across. So being emotionally intelligent involves respecting the needs of others in a workplace. You if you have, let's say, a team of diverse people of different cultures, you don't want to maybe say things or maybe things that might affect uh, a different group in your team. You don't want to say maybe things that might come up racist in nature, maybe things that affect a particular gender. You know, the workplace is a place that is very diverse. So, in being emotionally intelligent is something, is a soft skill that is essential to actually make sure you thrive.
Yeah. Thank you. So I think what I hear you say is reading the room is very important.
Yeah, very important.
Workplace is reading the room. Thank you for sharing that. Dr. Chidera, would you like to weigh in on that briefly for a minute or two?
Yeah, I mean, emotional intelligence goes without saying. Again, at the end of the day, here's what I would say: your IQ, right? I'm of the opinion that when it comes to life, there's a certain IQ that we need. Like we don't need so much.
Yeah,
We don't need so much. We just need enough for you not to be, hard to get through. Like I have to tell you 100 times to get to maybe once. Let me put it in the scale. If I want to show you ABC, right, and there's a scale of maybe you need to get there is someone that needs to get once to get ABC. There is someone 10 times ABC. There is someone 100 times. And in that curve, right, there is a point when your IQ is now the issue. But for the most part, I think everybody is below that curve where you get ABC at a certain number of times that is reasonable to get ABC. And once you fall below that, you are good with IQ. Now, what is there for you is now what you're talking about. Who is your character? Do you have the work ethics to learn that ABC as many times as you need to learn ABC to know ABC, right? That is where your soft skills start coming in. For me, when you have a soft skill that is enough to get you through ABC, and ABC is a technical skill here, right? You have enough soft skill to cover that technical skill and learn it. Now you have to show someone that you know ABC. That is where the work is. To show someone that you know ABC, you have to be able to know who are you showing. How do you communicate that in a way that the person gets it? Do you just barge into somebody's room? Hey, I'm the best this here. You can't even ask me any question that I can't get. That's where you are showing your emotional quotient, right? Because at the end of the day, if your EQ is not good enough for anyone to just interact with, it's like someone that you finish a meeting with, you're like, for some reason I don't like this guy. Like you don't know the reason why. But they are just maybe obnoxious. They are just something else. Like it's like everybody's like, what do you think about his presentation? It's like, he's good, but, But at the end of the day, I think that's where our emotional question comes in. Like you just have to be able to navigate human beings in a way that they get your word, they see those hours you've put in through learning your soft skills, your technical skills, and be able to be that personality that we all want to deal with. Yeah.
Yeah, thank you for bringing the message in a fun way. I really enjoyed the way you shared your insights. Thank you so much. Dawn, I have a question for you.
Yes.
Um, how can we cultivate empathy in an increasingly data-driven and automated environment? I bring questions on empathy to you because you mentioned
Mm,
communicating
yeah.
with empathy. So how do we do that? How do we
I'll say,
cultivate
yeah, even before I answer that question, I just want to add to what Dr. Chidera and Dr. Benjamin shared about emotional intelligence as towards yourself. Because I completely agree. You have to be able to read the room. You have to be able to understand how you present information to be received. I think also for yourself, because we're all humans and we'll all be in that situation where something is said that triggers you, something is said that makes you respond in a non-characteristic way. So I think also emotional intelligence can be applied to you as the person, and that the way it's applied to you is on this being self-aware. And this is not a one-time thing. It's knowing, okay, what was said that made me react this way, and then reflecting on it to say, okay, did my reaction help? Did it serve me well? Did it help communicate what I wanted to communicate, or did it make me come across as obnoxious and no one heard what I have to say? So I feel like, just adding one more to that communicating emotional intelligence should also be applied to us as the subject for better communication. So in a data-driven world, empathy, I would relate empathy to communication. So even if it's a data-driven world, maybe rephrase the question, like
No.
say it a
Okay.
different way.
We sometimes we want to just give people the facts. These are the
Ah,
facts. I bring it to you, but we struggle
yeah.
with balancing empathy with
Yes,
facts. No.
I see.
Yes. Yeah.
Yeah, that can be tricky. I would say depending on who you're speaking to. If I'm speaking to another engineer, and I would say also engineers have a logical, systematic way of thinking. And so they're also thinking facts. They are also thinking, here's the data I have. So the communication might be a bit different. You may not have to lead with empathy. You might say, hey, Dr. Chidera, this is my code, this is the bug, this is the error, here's what I think, and go with that. If you're communicating with leadership, however, then you need to understand. Empathy is understanding what is important to that person. I can come to Dr. Benjamin, might be interested in how does this move the organization forward, and I come and I say, this is the data says this. He's not listening because I haven't acknowledged what's important to him. And so I might lead with saying, I know, Dr. Benjamin, you're interested in how to move the organization forward, and I believe I have a solution. Here's the facts to back that solution. So that way he's hearing me because I'm speaking his language. But to another engineer that's also factual, that might not be necessary. I can just come and say, Dr. Chidera, here are the facts. What's yours? And we are both interacting from an objective perspective, and we're on the same page. So to answer your question, I think in a data world, it depends on who you're speaking to and what's important to them. So that allows you to lead, validating what's important to them, and then communicating what you have to say in a way that they can receive it.
Oh, no, thank you. So there is no one size fits all when it comes to communicating with empathy. It's knowing who you're speaking with and knowing what's important to them. Yeah.
Yes.
Thank you.
Mhm.
Let's go to resilience.
Can I
Oh,
add
you want
something? Yeah. let me say something that I found very interesting recently. Right, I think I had a very recent experience. So there was this app that just like playing around. Then I was trying to get an app that um, what it does. I mean, of course, we all have the AI thing, right? Get AI and get someone's resume, type it in, and send to OpenAI and API. Translate that, compare the resume, and see which one that gets the first fit. This is one example of where we have maxed out the idea of data in a world that should have gone beyond not just data, right? And I was just thinking to myself, very soon companies will start having the idea of where they will have an AI bot. What simply do is that when you send your resume, then it stores this in the database, and from each resume that comes in, it goes through the application, and the application just simply sorts out the 10 best candidates from all this bunch of resume. And again, I was just thinking, oh no, this is not a good idea. We used to live in a world where recruiters would have to call you on the phone, hey, and tell you,
Yes.
you know what, we have this role. Do you think you want to join? And recruiters from that, you can bond, right? You can have human interaction. You can feel this is a good candidate, even if their resume is like, you know, and that part, if there is strong adoption of data, we take away that part.
Yeah.
And even if we want to keep that part, recruiters will not make as much calls as they would have made in the past. So this generation of people that are trying to get into the workforce are now trying to battle this data-driven world that we are building so strongly. Because like I said, you can have this world where you don't even know what the role is about. You strike a chord with the recruiter, and the recruiter gives you more insight. You're like, oh no, I think I can do that. I have done this and this. And someone tells you, we find your resume for this role. This is what we have. But now we are getting to the point where we miss out on candidates that we connect with, candidates that actually make good things, just because we are all data. You know, we've had situations where you apply to a role, someone says, "Oh, I think we are not going to go for this role. We have something else. Can you?" Those connections are lost when we all go to data. And
Yeah.
I don't know. It's something that will still happen because at the end of the day, companies want to cut costs, and if having the AI bot there cuts costs for them, I'm sorry. I mean,
Yeah.
you just have to prepare for that individually.
Yeah. What would be interesting is if the AI helps to prepare the resume, that the AI then filters the resume with.
Oh my-
Yeah, we should get to that.
It's gonna be
There's
interesting.
a way it does that, of course. But this is what they call guardrails in AI development. Like you also have a guardrail to be able to read that this resume that is coming is also provided by AI. So like the fight is there. It's a data fight that we are
Yes.
going into full
Yeah.
force, right? Because I
Yeah.
mean, it's just like these days, someone is like, "Oh, I've done my homework. ChatGPT did it for me." I'm
Yeah.
like, "Come on! If I'm reading that homework, I probably should get an app that reads out ChatGPT,
Yes.
it out, and I'll call you back and I'll send you an email. Your homework is not ready.
It's not ready. You can't do it again.
Another one. Yeah, because
Yeah.
it's a different part. But I mean, yeah, it's all
Yeah.
good.
It's gonna
I
be
mean,
interesting.
yes,
Yeah.
sometimes I wonder what, the next 2 years would look like. I mean, every day there's a new AI. Every day someone is developing something. I'm like, wow. I mean, and that's why I really celebrate those who are advocating for, humanizing AI, being very intentional about the way we use AI and all that, so we don't lose, I mean, the sanity we have and all that. So it's just it's really interesting. We'll see what the next 2 years brings about. So I think we'll go into resilience, because we live in a world where change will always happen. We'll always encounter difficulties, be it at work and all that. So can you share a time where, I think I'll direct this question to you, Dr. Chidera, where you needed resilience to help you turn a challenge into an opportunity, let's say at work or just whatever. But here, because we are in the context of workplace, can you share a time where you, because of resilience, you were able to transform a challenge into an opportunity?
Yeah, I'll probably share with you one real quick one, right? Again, there is a data pipeline application that I needed to use, like to create a data pipeline for. Essentially, if file comes in, it stores in the database. I want to transform that data to a different format that another database needs to pick up. And it's one of those things that just comes to our team and it's like, oh yeah, we have this new app. Someone needs to like develop this. The person that used to use it wasn't available, and of course when that happened, in my mind I was like, yeah, that should be easy. Again, it's just that stupid part of me that will sometimes think that things are easy, So I was like, yeah, that should be easy. Then on getting the task assigned to me, and I was like, oh no, this is not that quite easy. And again, I have to get this done at a particular time. One thing I would always say is that resilience is you, first of all, trying to know that at some point you will bet on yourself. And I think I've had a prior experience where I was able to bet on myself and go through that pain of betting on myself that helped me to now see this one on a lighter note, right? And the moment I did, I was like, oh, someone must have done this. First of all, I'm not developing anything new here. Who has done this and who has done it well? Fortunately for me, someone that did it was on Udemy course, right? And I was like, oh yeah, I can get this course. I mean, it's 40 hours course, right? What do I have to do here to get this done? I mean, in a week, how many hours do we have? We have more than 40. And I have to get this task done by, I mean, get a good progress by the next um, this thing, right? So I give it a week time and, just going to work. Like I said, the very first thing about resilience that people might might not easily figure out is that for you to be resilient about something, you must have a path that you think you are going through. If you don't have a structure of what you think you want to do, I mean, you can't be resilient about nothing, right? You can't just say, I'm just resilient. What are you doing? You must have those steps, right, that you are trying to follow. So when I saw my part, oh, okay, someone must have done this. Who has done it? What did they do? How did they do it? Can I adapt it to my own case? I knew this was my part. The moment I saw the person who have done it, I saw how they did it, saw how it can be applied to my case. I was able to do it. And that way, knowing that part, the resiliency now becomes going through that step, the pain of going through that step, the pain of waking up and knowing that today I'm having minimum of X amount of hours on this task. That is now resilience. I know that today I'm not going to get distracted by XYZ because I am doing this. But when we throw these words around, we probably haven't getting the right path to being able to adopt it into our life. Like, oh, I'm going to be resilient to solve this, but you don't have any steps to it. Trust me, you get tired and you will not be able to follow through. So that's what I think about it.
No, thank you. So knowing your why is very important. Knowing why you're doing this, why you have to, get through this difficult phase is important because if you know your why, you have purpose, you see purpose in what you're doing. That kind of empowers you to go through those difficult times. Thank you, Dr. Chidera. Don, do you have anything to say on this? Do you have an experience you'd like to share with us?
I want to add to what Dr. Chidera is saying. So I agree, knowing your why is very important to be resilient. I also think that there was something he said about his routine of getting up at a certain time, running, and then studying for a certain period of time. I feel like as individuals, both to navigate a changing workspace and being resilient as far as being able to bounce back when there's an adversity is important that we have what I would call pillars in our lives. For me, it's my faith and it's also my why. My faith, also is the backbone for my why. And I have my own routines that helps me, with resilience, helps me with changing circumstances, because at the end of the day, what truly matters is my faith, is my family. And so anything else can happen and my core is intact, So I feel like, just to add, in addition to knowing your why, is building that practice or that routine or that habit that keeps you grounded. That way you can bounce back, you can face adversity, you can change, and it doesn't sway you as much.
Yeah, that's really insightful. Thank you. The follow-up question for everyone here: can you share some practices or routines that have helped you build resilience and other soft skills? Because we are talking about practices now. Maybe someone is here and like, oh, what are these practices? I don't even know how to begin to cultivate this. So, can you share some practices or routines that have helped you so far? I'd like to start with you, Dr. Ben.
Yeah, I think in terms of practices, for me, most times, obviously, you have the mindset, like a growth mindset of wanting to get better at whatever you're doing. So for me, one of the practice I do most times is so I'm talking about with respect to growth, resilience with respect to growth. So oftentimes when I see opportunities to maybe do something that I feel will improve me, I mean improve me career wise. Obviously, you have this activation energy, maybe the barrier, which most people say the barrier. So oftentimes to get going, to make sure I'm able to achieve that goal, the first thing I always do, or maybe some practice I normally do, is to just get it started. You know, I might, if I want to maybe say gain proficiency in, let's say, a particular skill set, the first thing I do is to get it started, and then worry about the difficulties later. So the moment you get it started, at that point, you can still back down, but it's oftentimes backing down is not an option. So now that you have that pressure to actually get it done, then you go ahead and get that done. So for me, the first thing I use most of the time to be resilient is to actually get started. Then also another thing I would also like to talk about in terms of resilience is having a growth mindset. So since I already know that my goal, or be career-wise, is to advance my career, so I always have to look for opportunities, that will help me to advance my career. And oftentimes, you also have to be intentional about these things. So if I have maybe when the year starts, I'm not saying maybe you have to make yearly plans, maybe a yearly goal, but oftentimes I have targets that I want to achieve, and then I'm proactive about those things. What do I need to do to get this? What do I need to do to get this? And I go on and persevere to make deliberate efforts to make sure I get those things. If it's to learn a course, let's say I have a course that will tremendously improve me, I'll go on and learn that course. Correct. And then obviously trying to juggle that with your daily activities oftentimes is difficult. So having that resilience to push through and arrive at your end goal, I kind of feel helps a lot. So for me, the two major things: getting started and having a growth mindset. Those are the two major things I kind of consider.
Thank you for sharing that growth mindset. Thank you. Dr. Chidera, do you have some practices you think our audience would benefit from today?
Yeah, I'll probably just put it down in a very simple way, right? So here's a typical day of what the day would be, right? I want to start with saying get a good sleep, but I'm not. I don't practice good sleep, but I think I do. I mean, on a good day, right? I can do 4 or 5 hours, but people have advised me to do 8 hours, and I will get to that. But I would say practice good sleep. Then I would say this. I don't know what your religion is, right? Get a little bit of it every day. Then the other part I would probably would advocate for is I say this. One of the most useful thing I do every day is working out. Because it's one of the easiest things to track. I mean, I can always know that today I ran 5 miles. It's easy. I have done it today. I know that today I've probably gone to the gym and I've done 3 sets of this and 4 sets of this. Easy to measure. Here's another thing about working out or doing exercise is that it's easy for you to know to get your body to feel good. Once your body is feeling good, you are in the right space to at least tackle your day a little bit more. And again, you are not just dealing with today, you are investing for tomorrow. That is how I see it. But beyond that, now we talk about let's come back to the whole physical, I mean the whole professional thing, which is how we work. I say this. One of the common things you can do is that is either you create a note on your phone or you have a notepad plus plus on your computer, wherever it is that you want to track what is that one single thing you did today. I think we are living in a world where we we have to tell our stories more often than is necessary. I have to put it that way. Like you have to tell your stories. Like just like Dawn said, I was on a podcast. She's here today. She probably go somewhere else. Someone is like, "Oh, who are you? What do you do?" Those questions would come to you in one way or the other. Even if you are filling a form, you are going to show why you deserve to get whatever you are filling the form for. You are going to tell your stories in one way or the other. And I tell people this, especially like when you're starting out, when you haven't built that credibility, you haven't built that credibility per se, where people would want to give you a award for just existing. You go to people's office, you just go behind them, just like the way you have done so right now. You see different award, and I'm like, do you actually deserve this award? Are we just giving you the award these days we give people award just to give credibility to the award itself. Someone will say, "Oh, I won this award that this person won," and I'm like, but before you get to that point when they are giving you awards for award to get credibility, you have to tell your story. So one of the easiest things that as a young person, right? I know some people here, if you are applying for graduate school, sometimes people send me their resume and say, "Hey, no resume, their SOP," and tell me, "Do you want to help me review this?" And I'm like, "Oh yeah, write something." When you write something, then bring that can take a look and say, "Okay, this is what you've written. Let's tell your story more, so that in the pool of people that have their stories, your own might be more fraction." So how do you get those things? Is those tiny block points that you write every single day of what you've done today, that when it boils down to it, you can come back to it and say, "Hey, this is what I have done." Um, I've always been of the opinion that you create goals for yourself, right? But again, with time, I'm a little bit more flexible with how far away in the future that you want to get that goal because of how much things are changing. So in that sense, I said create goal for today, but you do it yesterday night. So by the time you're going bed we are going to bed today, know that tomorrow I have to do XYZ. And people call it MIT. Your most important thing to do in a day, right? So you probably know, oh, tomorrow I just have to do this. If you finish that thing by, I used to make a joke that sometimes, because of how early I wake up sometimes, by 9 a.m., I'm done for today, like, like I'm just questioning through today because, yeah, I mean, if you probably sometimes if you wake up by 3 and I'm done by 9, I mean, we are just chilling for the day, waiting for 8 p.m. or 10 p.m. to go to bed, But again, here's the thing: know what you want to do for the next day. Write it down every day because you want to tell the story. So track what you've done. Track it. I think it's very necessary for someone that's starting off. Then, then of course, to grow, you would have to do things. You would have to do things, and that means that you have to learn. And one thing I tell people is that whenever you are learning, one thing that keeps you disciplined to some degree is that you should have a way to measure. Find one thing that you will measure with regards to your learning. Whether is that you measure time, which is not the best metrics in this case because people can learn for 2 hours and do nothing, or you measure output, which is what I prefer to measure. For instance, if you're learning how to do something, measure, for instance, you're trying to write or something, you're trying to write your essay. How many words did you write today? You're trying to graduate school, you're trying to apply for jobs. How many resumes did you send out today? These trackers are things that you can track and tell yourself, I am doing something, And if you don't track anything, I say most times, if you care about it and you're not tracking it, then you don't actually care about it. So in summary, right, get a good sleep, think about your region a little bit more, try to work out, you know, track what you have done today, and find a way to grow. So those are the 5 things I'll probably put out there.
No, thank you. That's very insightful. I love it. Thank you so much for sharing that. Measuring goals is very important. I agree. Setting goals that can be measured, that keeps you on track and keeps you motivated as well. So, yeah, thank you. I have a question from our audience, and I think it's important we highlight that. David is asking, how does one keep themselves encouraged in the face of disappointment, especially when it's something you've put your whole heart into and you experience failure? How do you keep yourself encouraged?
Yeah, I think maybe this is something I would like to, is a topic I am passionate about most times. So I think one thing that is common in life is the fact that there is always moments when things are going for us and moments when things are not, which is actually like is normal in life. And oftentimes it hurts a lot, when you put your mind, your body, your soul to something, and at the end of the day, you get uh, no as a response. So, but I think the most important thing is knowing that rejection is a normal aspect of life. I think that's like the first thing. Like once you know that, irrespective of everything I've done, there is always that tendency that this thing is going to be rejected. I think for me, mentally, you have to kind of get wired in such a way that maybe you can just tell yourself that maybe 99% of the time I will be rejected. But then what keeps me going is that 1%. I say this because throughout my graduate program, I had instances where you've been rejected so many times. It could be publications, maybe a couple of fellowship applications, you know. And while working on it, I would start with, let's say, a manuscript, for example. You could have this project that you worked on for 3 to 4 years, you know. So your head is like is the masterpiece. Is that is that masterpiece that is going to change the whole world, and you truly believe in it, you know. But again, when you eventually submit this manuscript, and at the end of the day, some reviewer somewhere, it's kind of giving you the criticism about your work, and oftentimes those are valuable criticism that ends up making your work much better. So the only thing is, for me, I would say you see those rejections as one opportunities that actually make you better. It might not be what you want, but if you don't give up, eventually you're gonna get. You know, that's one thing I'd like to talk about. And also, secondly, also remembering that failure is normal in life. Rejection is normal in life. I haven't seen anybody that have not failed. The most important thing is, when you fail, you have to rise up again. You have to have that mental fortitude, that understanding that one is normal to fail, but then I'm going to persevere. I'm going to keep trying to the point until I win. Actually, so you have to just keep trying. So I hope that maybe added some insight to David's question.
Yeah,
Yes.
yeah. Maybe just to add some a little bit more insight to this with Dave, right? I don't know if you listen to me, but I'll put it this way. For me, one thing about resilience again, it goes back to what I just simply said now. You must know what you are tracking. If you track the right metrics, you might help yourself a little more to handle failure. And I'll give you a very short story. Imagine someone that is trying to get into software development, and I'll give you one common thing that people do. They practice lead code question. And in my own experience, right, at some point, when I started interviewing, it was a little bit fun, right? I remember my first interview was with Google, right? And they said, hey, come in for this interview. And went for the first round, did well. They said second round, and I went into the second round. That was pretty much the whole day of writing code. And it was pretty much like writing all graph code. I know I have done a lot of studying coming to the interview. I felt like I did well. But when the rejection came in, it was a little bit more painful, given the amount of hours I spent on this. And one thing I simply told myself is like, wait. What what just happened now? And I just told myself that I failed this interview, but the point is that I'm sure that I got a good candidate, first of all. But the other thing to it is that I had to tell myself at that instance is that I have to be sure of what I'm actually tracking. And in that point, what I changed my mindset to is that instead of feeling bad about the interview that I just lost, I started tracking how many bit code questions I've done, for instance. That kind of gave me a paradigm shift to the whole concept. Like, instead of me feeling like I have failed something, I have to feel like I have to get better in
Yeah.
some regard. So when I started Googling around, someone said, I have finished this amount of lead code question that I thought was incredible, and they got an offer to this. And I was like, wow, people do this amount to get in, right? And it kind of started giving me a shift to what might be necessary that I haven't even thought about that I need to do to get in, right? So it now became a question of, okay, do more. Probably put in a little bit more effort. Then, but overall, whatever the case might be, what I started adopting going forward was like, when I'm trying to do a task, ask yourself, what are those matrices that you have control over, that you can improve on, that if you get good enough based on those metrics with time, you will definitely get your response. So if it's that you are trying to apply to graduate school and you know what are the markers someone are looking out for. Hey, what is your GRE score, for instance? What is your TOEFL score, for instance? What does your recommendation letters look like? Who is actually recommending you? What is the number of research projects that you've done? When you pay attention to these markers and start seeing that people with even better matrices than you are not getting in, it gives you that room to not feel depressed enough to quit, because that is the concern. If you feel depressed enough to quit, then I mean the ones you've done is wasted, and you won't get it at the end of the day. So, um, but again, in summary, find those matrices that you can control and track them. And I assume that David is a guy, right? I'll put it this way, in a more general way, to rephrase what Ben said, right? Ben is trying to tell you that you shouldn't quit. And I assume that if a guy simply quits because you talk to the first girl, you probably will end up getting married. So, so in that sense, if you know that you talk to the first girl and she will say no and you will go again and again and again, then in this case, when it comes to your career, go again and again and again. Okay, yeah, that's my that's my opinion about that.
Thank you so much. This reminds me of Darren Hardy. I don't know if you've read The Compound Effect. He was sharing his experience of, going to looking for opportunities to fail. He went out looking for opportunities to fail. He would make calls to people he knew were not interested in what he was selling to them. That was just building his muscles. Eventually he became so, he's so good that he didn't even, failure had nothing on him, and today we are celebrating him. So I'm just saying that failures, they're opportunities for growth. They refine you, they make you better. And it's difficult, it's easier said than done, but it's
Mhm.
something that if we have an open mindset, a positive mindset, eventually we would say that these failures, they are not failures in quote, but they're opportunities for us to grow and become better in everything, what we are doing and all that. So thank you, Dr. Ben and Dr. Chidera. Don, do you have anything to say before we summarize?
No, I think you all said it all. I think the common theme is the journey. So even though the end result is not what you had hoped for, we are almost always changed in the journey. We learn how to write better. We learn how to do more code if we're tracking that metric. So I feel like the only true failure is not trying at all or giving up. We're always changed by any challenge or any task we embark on, regardless of the end result.
I agree. Thank you. To our audience, do you have any more questions? If I don't get any more questions in a minute or two, I think we'll just go on to wrap up. But final words before, a quick question before I give you the opportunity to wrap up is, are there books or people, mentors will not just be people we can meet face to face. Are there books you can recommend to our audience today, or thought leaders that have helped you in developing your soft skills? I'll start
Yeah,
with
I think. Oh,
yes. Yeah, I
okay.
was going to start with you. So, yeah.
Okay. Yeah. I think one of the book I would like to recommend is Atomic Habits. Yeah. So that is a book that teaches you how to. Because oftentimes one of the problem we have, we start out wanting to be a better version of ourselves. We start out wanting to actually do the right things that will make us grow. But the problem most times is executing it. Like most people, study year with New Year goals. This year I'm going to do this. I'm going to be a much better person. They genuinely have that desire to want to be great, to want to be much better. But the problem most times is execution. You know, so the book Atomic Habit is a book that teaches you how to break down big tasks, into smaller chunks that are achievable. And those smaller chunks ends up giving you confidence, which makes you eventually go on to achieve that goal. So take for example, let's say you wanted to make sure you are fit, or like you could make the goal of, okay, today I'm gonna run on the treadmill for, let's say I'm gonna start for 5 minutes, and then the first 1 week I'm gonna do 5 minutes, and then maybe next week you bump it up to 7 or 10. So it's like a gradual increment that makes you not to quit on achieving your big goal, but it kind of gives you those smaller bit size or chunk size goals that can be achieved. So I think that's a book that I always like recommending to other people because that also helped me a lot throughout my career as well, my personal life as well too.
Yes. Thank you. I agree. Atomic Habits, it's an all-time. I know it's a very impactful. But I think everyone should read Atomic Habits. And he also has this. He has this weekly newsletters that
Yeah.
keeps encouraging you and sharing insights that would help you grow both personally and career-wise. So yes, thank you, Dr. Chidera. Are there books or thought leaders you would like to recommend to our audience today?
So to be frank, when you said the book, right, I was turning back a little bit because the book I'm trying to recommend, I will give you a caveat to that. My caveat is this: I'm not recommending this book because I have an author somewhere that I'm collecting tithes or I'm collecting off. I don't have any of those. And again, I'm not recommending this book because I am a good ambassador to represent it or to say, but I mean, to some degree, to the degree that you imagine someone that is commending the book, I'm not. But again, I recommend. I think at some point, right, with a lot of learning that have taken me from reading normal book, right, to finding something more technical or more related to my business or idea that I'm working on to read on. So if I recommend you to read some statistical textbook, it doesn't make any sense to you. But with regards to this conversation, one book that I found out that was very helpful is the book of Proverbs, right? I think that book of Proverbs is a very key word, key book to read. Sorry, and I saw one quote recently. Someone said, "The more I read the book of Proverbs, I keep finding that I might be that simple man that they are talking about." So, but but I think at this point, I started reading the Bible with a little more humor. Like I think there's so much humor in that book. Like maybe we grew up reading it with so much spiritual connotation to it that maybe if you read it, you will not sin today. Come on, you read it and you might end up seeing today. I'm not going to advocate for that, but I'm trying to talk about it regards with you growing, emotionally, being more aware. I think so many books are also a derivative of the Bible, right? And pick up a particular story in the Bible and just read, and you're like, wow, And again, I'm not trying to preach it, but I thought one thing that was very funny that I read recently was about Jonah. That story was very funny about this guy. They told him to go and preach. Now this people repent. The guy refused. He said, "No, I'm not going." It's so much humor. And I can just relate to this guy. I was like, what should I even go and preach and tell these people to repent so that they will not die? Come on, I'm not going to. But again, I think that book. I started reading it with more humor now. Again, I'm not trying to preach like don't stop sinning. I mean, we all know that we should stop sinning, but if you sin, I will also sin too. but but yeah, I recommend Proverbs. I recommend the Bible in general. So yeah.
Yeah. I totally agree. I picked up this habit of reading a chapter of Proverbs every day, and it's really, really, empowered me. There's so much wisdom in the book of Proverbs,
Yes.
and some of these principles that the self-help books they share in their books. You know that, as Dr. Chidera said, they're derivatives of the Bible.
Yeah.
There's those principles. Most of them come from the Bible. I'm really grateful you shared that. So thank you so much. Don, do you want to share books or thought leaders or anything that has really been helpful to you with
Yeah.
respect to what we're discussing today?
Yes, absolutely. And I third the Bible and the words. I feel like for leadership, the book of Moses or Moses's journey has really impacted my way of leadership because if you remember, God did not speak to the children of Israel. He spoke to Moses. So Moses had to lead a whole nation when they didn't know. Like who told you that? They had to believe him. I thought he was a great leader. I still think he's a great leader. I think for me, what really has helped with my soft skill development are two parts: understanding the people that I am interacting with. So if you're an individual contributor, like Dr. Chidera said, you don't necessarily need to interact with anyone. Sometimes you might just go in and code. And so there isn't as much pressure in developing soft skills until you want to do more than that. And so that's where it's important to understand what's important to your project manager, what's important to your sales leader, what's important to those people you want to influence, because that's what soft skills allows you to do, influence. Um, and so some books that I have found very helpful. There was one called The Unofficial, I think it's called The Unofficial Project Manager. And so it's a very quick read, but it helps you understand what's important to them and how can you better communicate with them. And as you start taking on projects, how do you communicate efficiently? How do you lead in that sense? It's hard for me to not talk about leadership when I talk about soft skills and communication, because leadership just means influencing, communicating, getting people to buy into your idea, and it requires soft skills. So I'll use that interchangeably. And then with that, there is a book called Dare to Lead by Brene Brown. That has been very helpful for me to with my leadership and communication. And then one other book that I keep going back to is The Five Dysfunctions of a Team. And it helps you both as a leader and as a team member to understand how you can effectively work with other people to move a mission forward. And highlights any soft skills that as you go through those material that is important for you to grow. And then as far as mentorship is concerned, I agree with what Dr. Chidera said, that the best mentors are people that are just one or two steps ahead of you, and so that would be unique for everyone. You can have authors that you learn from, but effective mentors are those around you typically. So that's it for me.
Yes, thank you. Brené Brown, I love her books. She's
Mhm.
very authentic. That's
Yeah.
why I really love her. Thank you so much for being with us today. I know our audience, they've gained so much. It was a very impactful session. We really, really appreciate it. And I found it very, very insightful as well. I've gained a lot from our session today. I don't know, do you have final words or do we wrap it up? Any
I
final
think this
words
was
from
this was great. Just wishing everyone in the audience just I think that there's something I want to communicate, that our journey is different, but I really believe that God did not create anyone to doom and gloom. So even though our journey is different, there's hope, and we should just have that knowledge that the future is bright wherever the direction leads, and walk confidently towards it. um, but I appreciate everyone for being here and being willing to learn and grow.
yeah, thank you. Thank you. Dr. Chidera and Dr. Ben, any final words?
I think I would like to maybe appreciate everyone that made it here today, both the audience and members of the panelists. And I think final words for probably the audience is just to add to what Don already said, is to have the mindset of growth. You know, that's for me the major key takeaway of today's talk. Uh, Always wanting to grow, and then if you see that you have a limitation or something that you feel might hinder your growth, today we talked about soft skills. You can start making the effort to add to that, and eventually, be a better person eventually. And also, just to add again, I think the aspect of failure. Somebody talked about failure. Just see failure as something that is normal in life, and also adding to what Dara said, look at the right metrics. When you fail, don't just focus on the failure. Always look at the right metrics. Am I improving? Is this work getting better because it was rejected? And then the concerns brought up by the people or the people that review that are giving you feedback or reviewing are those actual concerns that you should look at. You know, consider all of those in their totality, and then have the growth mindset, and hopefully we're all going to arrive at a better place because that's the way to go. Yes.
Thank you, Dr. Ben. And Dr. Chidera, do you have any final words for our audience today?
Yeah, my final words would be this, right? If you probably heard me, you probably know that I try to find a way of measuring most things. I will say this, right? If you had sat through this conversation because you heard the word soft skills and you think that is what's just listening to this, just note to yourself that this is an indicator that you are actually seeking out what would be helpful. Whatever we said here might be meaningless to you, right? In the whole grand scheme of things. But that behavior to seek out whatever that will be discussed here is what will get you to the right information that you need, in even in other areas of your life. So looking by here, I'll put it this way. Sometimes when I want to track what has been taking most of my attention, I check what does my YouTube look like? What have I been searching on YouTube? What have I been searching on Google? Those things gives you an idea of what is important to you. How many hours have I spent on this app? And if you spent 1 hour, 30 minutes, 1 hour, 40 minutes having this conversation or listening to this conversation, that is an indicator that you are concerned about where you are going. I'll simply say, keep it up. Like, seek out for people that are better than us. Seek out for more informed as well. I'm sure they will definitely help you going forward. And with that, thank you so much, everyone.
Oh, thank you so much for making out the time to be here with us today. We really appreciate it, and thank you to our audience for also, making out time to be here to learn. It's having a growth mindset is very important. So you being here means you want to grow, and I celebrate you for that. I wish everyone a wonderful weekend and happy holidays. Thank you so much. Bye.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Okay.